When you go to the psych ward to get help, you're not expecting to face resistance necessarily from staff or mental health care providers. That is, if you only listen to what psych wards are advertised to do. However, if you don't do your proper research and know exactly how these places work, you might end up in a situation like this young lady. This story was submitted from a follower, sharing her experience on what it was like when she went through the psych ward. Now, she made it out and she has her faculties, but she went through a lot of things that we will deem unnecessary. And if you know before you go, maybe you'll be able to avoid these pitfalls. And she wants to share this story to our community for that very purpose. She's brave, strong, and resilient, and this is her story. Welcome back to Jay's Psych Ward Stories.
Hey, we are living in a psych ward. I'm quite sure this is psych ward. I'm quite sure.
Welcome to Jay's Psych Ward Stories, where we talk everything psych over here. My 7+ years of experience working inside the mental wards has turned into me telling stories from the inside, talking about how the system works and deconstructing the stigma of talking about mental health. My goal sharing these stories is to shed light on the real inner workings of the psych system, and also to give hope to people out there that feel alone, because oftentimes we don't talk about these things enough. Also created a community off platform specifically dedicated to people on different parts of their mental health journey, but more on that later. Let's get into the story. This is the highlights. So much more went wrong from the ER to inpatient to outpatient at my first facility. This all happened in April of 2022. I went to the ER because I was suicidal. The only good thing that happened was the first nurse I saw at the ER told me to write down phone numbers, as I would have to surrender my phone when I went to the psych ward. Otherwise, I would not have been able to reach out to my chosen family. Now, a lot of people don't know that with certain wards. They do not let you have your phone. And sometimes you can be introduced to mental health care traumatically as things are being taken away from you, and it can send you into a further lower vibrational state of depression, anxiety, panic attacks. And that's why I feel like a lot of facilities do a poor job of pre-educating people on what it is that they are going to be expected to do. And that's why I made Jay's Psych Ward Survival Guide, so you don't have to guess. But let's keep going. I have ADHD. I had a mental health crisis in 2022. The ER holding area was filthy. The room they tried to give had a turd in the middle of the floor. No one ever cleaned it in the 8 hours I was there. The other room had a cot on an unswept floor. I sat in the chair in the room. The facility I was sent to ended up stopping my ADHD medicine and my birth control pills cold turkey. I ended up having a meltdown, aka emotional dysregulation, because no one would listen to me. I needed to access insurance stuff on my cell phone. Everyone kept passing the buck. I almost lost my job and short-term disability because of it. On my first day there, they tried to ask me questions when I had a bad reaction to Ativan and couldn't stay conscious. They yelled at me, trying to get me to give them an email address, which I could not state correctly as I kept slipping in and out of consciousness. A bit after that, there was yelling at me about how I couldn't keep sleeping in the infirmary as it was time to shut down and send us back to the dorms. And that's the thing about being on these psych medications or medications in general, because when you're starting something new, your body has to react to it. Drowsiness, being lethargic, and if you're not careful and if you don't know your rights and how to properly speak up for yourself, your insurance can get juiced while you're sitting in that psych ward, not having your faculties together, not able to participate in any of the mental health treatment programs that they have available, like group therapy, recreational therapy. And then what do? They'll blame you for it because you weren't present, and they'll justify it as a reason to keep you or to say that you're in disagreement with your treatment plan. You gotta know before you go. As a pre-diabetic, I was supposed to have my blood sugar checked before a meal. This nurse forgot and didn't come to check until after we had eaten. She put in my chart that I had refused. The next morning, the AM nurse asked why I refused. I confronted the nurse who lied and said I wanted absolutely nothing to do with her. I refused to have any dealing with her. Heading to groups, I tried to get on a different elevator, but they refused. She made a comment, "I don't know why you have to be so difficult because you don't like me." I reminded her exactly what she did. She falsified my medical record and lied about me. I requested that what she wrote be stricken from my record, but administration claimed there was no such note. I request a meeting with a minister of my faith. I'm pagan. They declined because of COVID. This was April 2022, and no one was required to wear masks in the facility. But COVID? I insisted that if the answer was no, I needed it in writing. Ultimately, they allowed a 30-minute visit, barely enough time to add my clergy person to my phone and fill out the insurance paperwork in my email. That day was the last day to do so. That facility was so stressful that it made my mental health worse. That's when they started telling me I couldn't keep answering the assessment in the way that I did, not showing improvement for my insurance because they weren't going to cover me for any more time. I was 2 weeks in at that point. All that they did was add Wellbutrin on top of the Pristic and a blood pressure medication, as the experience there had an effect on that. Ultimately, they slapped a bipolar disorder diagnosis on me by the time I moved to outpatient. I enrolled in their outpatient program and was placed in the group of people struggling with addiction because I was advocating for treatment of my ADHD. After talking to others in the program, I found out I was not the only one that was denied treatment for ADHD. I went to the psychiatrist that I had been seeing for over a decade and resumed my ADHD meds under his orders. I was promptly kicked out of their program for taking medicine they did not authorize. I tried to discuss it with the nurse practitioner, but she refused to answer my questions and pretended I was not talking to her. Literally, she was sitting at her desk ignoring me. I lost it and had another meltdown. I was so angry I was crying. I ended up inpatient at a second unaffiliated facility. The new facility stopped my Pristic, which had stopped working, and put me on Zoloft while continuing the Wellbutrin. Upon release, I was referred back to my own psychiatrist for medication management even after I enrolled in the new facility's outpatient program. What's the big difference between these two facility outpatient programs? The first one, that refused to acknowledge that ADHD even existed, was run by a psychiatric nurse practitioner who would not allow me to talk to the psychiatrist she was working under. The second program was run by a psychiatric doctor where medication management could be handled by them or my own doctor if I preferred. Psychiatric nurse practitioners are not allowed to prescribe or advise on medication for ADHD, so it was easier for her to pretend that ADHD did not exist than to consult the psychiatrist she was allegedly working under. I'm doing much better now thanks to the second facility. Also, please note there was no intensive evaluation ever done to determine my alleged bipolar diagnosis by the first facility. My psychiatrist and my PCP, both whom had treated me for over a decade, disagreed with the bipolar disorder diagnosis. My PCP said if that were true, he would have pissed me off a long time ago. Additionally, the second facility disagreed with the bipolar disorder diagnosis and made a point of not mentioning it in my record. Between being listed as bipolar and an addict, I can no longer go to hospitals in that corporate chain. The minute someone sees bipolar disorder or addict, you get written off, even if it isn't true. As for how I ended up in that situation, it was a combination of Pristic stopped working, a stressful move, a breakup on the day of the move, and a toxic boss that was gaslighting me. Too many things at once. I wish I had been aware of your content before all of this. I might have been a little more prepared. You're welcome to share with your followers. Maybe it will help someone. Wow. Y'all let me know what y'all think about that one. When you go to the psych system and you're not properly educated about how they can rock you and what's the temperament of the C's, you can find yourself lost at sea, coming out worse than when you went in, being gaslighted in the midst of you already trying to juggle things that are falling by the wayside, such as work, such as sleep, such as relationships that you care about. Whatever it is that you got going on in life and that's out of balance, these places should restore balance, where you're able to go there, be heard, but it's not that easy. And that is why I wrote Jay's Psych Ward Survival Guide, where I go through everything you need to know before you go to the psych ward. Now, I've been working very hard to try to get this thing ready for physical copies, and good news, they should be ready by the end of this week. Additionally, I've created a community called the Psych Ward Survival Club. This is for people that maybe have been to the psych ward, thinking about going, or want to avoid going, and you're in different parts of your mental health journey, people from all walks of life coming together to discuss what is often heavily stigmatized, and that's mental health issues, diagnoses, stories, the things that people might judge you about if you put in the comment section online, but nobody will judge you about in the Psych Ward Survival Club. So if that sounds like something you'd like to be a part of, I also go through courses where I'm breaking down, just like this, exactly how to see the psych system, navigate the psych system. It's an even deeper journey into my Psych Ward Survival Guide, and you get to meet like-minded people. There's already people over there that have worked in psych, been in psych, and they are talking and encouraging one another. We're sharing our wins. We do weekly discussions, weekly video calls, and for a limited time, this community will be absolutely free to access because I want as many people to join this as possible. And for my first 100 members, you will be able to join a monthly call with me. Once you work your way up to the premium tier, you'll be able to do a weekly call where we can talk about your challenges, discuss your wins, and stay encouraged. Additionally, if you want to work in psych and you want to figure out how you can be a patient advocate, or you want to learn my sauce, I was called the Patient Whisperer, then I go through a whole course called the Psych Worker Survival School, where I can show you the type of person, the type of temperament you need to have in order to have effective presence in these spaces, and not to be drained by the system that you see hurting so many people, but to be a part of change and helping the system to do what the corporate greed won't allow it to do many times. I appreciate this follower so much for sharing this story. If you would like to submit a story, you can send it to jpsychwarstories@gmail.com. I'm backed up on stories. I'm getting a whole bunch of them, but I do read all of them. Just let me know on whether or not you would like me to share it, and we'll get to your story. And eventually, I think it's going to be time to do some podcasts and to interview some people on what their situations were. I think that would really help people to hear some voices and to have our media translated into person-to-person interviews, because I got some really good questions that I like to ask individuals, especially with my time in the psych ward, and just to be able to filter some of the things for us to understand and learn and to grow. So more on that coming soon, but I definitely will say this: if you are in the psych ward survival club, submitting a story to be interviewed will be far easier than if you are not. I'll just let you know that. Appreciate y'all. Let me know what you think in the comment section, and as always, like for more stories.